أهلا بكم أبنائنا وبناتنا طلاب وطالبات الصف الثاني الثانوي في حلقة جديدة لمادة البيولوجي. احنا الحقيقة كانت الحلقة اللي فاتت بتكلمنا عن excretion of the living organisms. اتكلمنا عن excretion in the human beings. اتكلمنا عن excretion in plants. دلوقتي احنا هنعمل revision على الشابتر 4 as excretion، وبعد كده هنبدأ في شابتر 5 إن شاء الله. نبدأ كده نشوف أول سؤال معانا بيقول لنا إيه. What would happen in each of the following cases? A man ingested a toxic substance caused destruction of all nephron in his kidneys. Man ingested a toxic substance, means poisonous substance, causing the destruction or damage of all the nephrons inside his kidneys. اخد بالي هو inside one of the two kidneys ولا in his kidneys. لما يبقى one of the two kidneys هقول the other kidney can grow and carry out the function of both of the two kidneys. لكن لما يقول لي all nephrons in his kidneys يبقى هنا الانسر هتفرق. The patient will die due to the accumulation of toxins in his blood. But the patient can use the artificial kidney to remove the toxins from his blood. The urea which accumulated inside the blood of the patient, which causing the disease, which is called the uremia, we can remove the urea or the concentration of urea from the blood by using the artificial kidney. If the patient with the failure of kidney not use the artificial kidney, the patient will die. This slide acts as an experiment to explain that the water raises through the xylem vessels. In this experiment, we can get a twig of the plant and get the twig of the plant in iodine solution or pink pigment. جبنا pink pigment أو صبغة حطينا فيها البرانش أو التويج of the plant اللي بالشكل ده، وبعد كده خلينا البلانت يعمل transpiration. لقينا ان leaves of the plant, the leaf petiole, the petals of the flower change into pink. If we make a transverse section of this part or the stem of the plant, we can observe that's the transverse section. We can observe that the xylem vessels only are stained with the iodine solution. يبقى هنا البيجمنت ديت عدت في الزايلم فيسلز بس، فنلاقي ان الترانسفيرس سيكشن اوف ستيم بالشكل ده نلاقي الزايلم فيسلز only are stained with the iodine solution. This experiment to prove that the xylem responsible for carrying water and salts from the root to the leaf. Explain an experiment to show the ascent of water in the plant by transpiration pool. Explain an experiment to show the ascent of water in the plant by the transpiration process. The experiment immerse an open-ended narrow tube full of water into a beaker containing mercury. The tube with two openings. We fill the tube with the water and put the lower part or lower tip of the tube in the beaker containing mercury. Insert the lower end of the tube inside the beaker which containing mercury, and also insert the twig which cut under the water surface in a cork piece or cork plug and fix it tightly to the upper opening of the tube, so that cut the part of this twig or cutting the twig of the plant underwater to prevent the cutting of water column, and the plant can or if we protect the water column against the cuts that can protect the plant or the plant twig alive. Close the opening firmly with the Vaseline and mark the mercury level. Let the twig to carry out transpiration process. What about the observation? The observation, the plant transpire and the level of the water molecule of the water level rises inside the capillary tube. The observation, the level of the mercury rises in the tube. The conclusion, when the leaf lose water by transpiration, water rises in the tube, and accordingly the mercury rises to replace the water. Therefore, transpiration leads to the ascent of water inside the plant. يبقى هنا الاكسبيرمنت دي كانت بتثبت لي حاجه اسمها transpiration process or transpiration pull. دي اللي عملنا لها explanation by Dixon and Joule theory, which explains the ascent of sap due to cohesive, adhesive, and transpiration pull. And that's the apparatus that used to prove the transpiration pull of the plant. Choose the correct answer. Which of the following control the excretion of the urine outside the body? Which of the following control the excretion of the urine outside the body? The choice: the urinary bladder, number B, ureter, number C, kidney, number D, sphincter muscle around the opening of the urinary bladder. Of course, the right answer is the sphincter muscle around the opening of the urinary bladder, which controls the passage of the urine outside the body. The next question. From the functions of the epidermal skin. From the functions of the epidermal skin: absorption of air, excretion of gases, production of sweat, number D, prevent the penetration of the bacteria. What about the function of the epidermal skin? Of course, that acts as a type of immunity because it prevents the penetration of the bacteria or prevents the bacteria to get inside the body. But the skin can't absorb air, the skin can't excrete gases, and also the production of sweat takes place by the sweat gland in the dermis of the skin, not in the epidermis of the skin. The next. Accumulation of excretory wastes in the human blood without being excreted by the kidney. What will happen? That leads to number A, blood poisoning by urea, number B, urine accumulated in kidney pelvis, number C, kidney stone formation, number C, urine fills the bladder rapidly. What about the answer? The accumulation of urea inside the blood leads to blood poisoning by urea, which is called the uremia. The next question. Men get red urea through the respiratory system, skin and urinary system, number D, urinary system. We remember that the excretion of urea mainly takes place by the kidneys or the urinary system, but little amount of urea can get out by the skin. So the right answer is the skin and urinary system. The next. The structure that extract the waste from the man's blood is urinary bladder, ureter, renal medulla, or nephron. Of course, this acts as a simple question because the nephron acts as a functional unit of the human kidney. The next question. Bowman's capsule is found in cortex, medulla, pelvis of kidney, lobe of renal. The question asks about Bowman capsule. Bowman capsule is found in the cortex of the human kidney. The next question. Give reason for each of the following. The sweat is also produced in winter. That acts as a very simple question because of the continuous blood supply of the sweat gland to regulate the body temperature, in addition of the excretion of wastes. So the sweat gland carry out two functions. The first is regulation of the body temperature, while the second is the excretion of the wastes. Explain withdrawing the methods of blood purification by the artificial kidney apparatus. Explain withdrawing the methods of the blood purification by the artificial kidney apparatus. That is the diagram which explains the idea of the artificial kidney. The blood, or the blood which containing the urea and the salts from the artery of the patient, pass through the semi-selectively permeable tube, which located in a path containing the dialysis solution or purified liquid, that's liquid free of urea and salts but containing the other blood plasma components. Urea and salts get out from the blood, and the blood, or the blood which is free of urea, return back to the human vein, so that's a change the blood which containing urea and salts into purified blood. Give scientific term for each of the following. A cup-shaped swelling by which the nephron start. What a part of the cup-shaped structure that starts the nephron? Of course, that is the Bowman capsule, where the filtration takes place inside it. The next give scientific term. Drops of water can be seen at the leaf tip of some plant in early morning. Drops of water can be seen at the leaf tips of some plants at the early morning. That's called the guttation, which takes place through the stomata pores. The next. The loss of water from the plant in the form of vapor. The loss of water from the plant in the form of vapor. This process is called the transpiration process. If the question asks about the losing of water from the stomata pores of the plant leaves, that's called the stomatal transpiration. From the cutine layer, that's called the cuticle, or from the lenticels of the wooden stem, that's called the lenticular transpiration. The next. Openings that exist in the cork layer of the woody tree's stem. The question asks about the openings in the wooden stem. It is the lenticels. Lenticels, where the lenticular transpiration takes place. The next gives scientific term. Getting rid of sweat products from the body through the plasma membrane. Getting rid of the waste products from the body through the plasma membrane. The answer is the excretion, where the excretion through which the excretion takes place through the plasma membrane, but the substance which can't, or which is not passed through the plasma membrane, is not act as excretory wastes. The next. A layer of epidermis in the skin formed from dead cells. The upper layer of the epidermis, which is formed of dead cells, or the horny layer, that's called the horny layer or keratin substance. The next. Cells responsible for the color of the skin. Cells responsible for the color of the skin. It is the melanin layer, which is secreted from the cells at the base of the epidermis of the human skin. The next. A layer of skin is worn away and continuously replaced by the Malpighian layer. Malpighian layer is the lower layer of the epidermis. So what about this layer of skin which worn away and continuously replaced by the Malpighian layer? It is the upper epidermis or the horny layer. The next. A gland keeps the hair soft and pliable. The gland responsible for keeping the hair soft and more pliable. This gland is called the sebaceous gland or fatty gland. which secretes the oily substance which facilitates the exit of the hair and keep the hair soft and pliable. The next. A duct carries urine from the kidney to the bladder. A duct carries urine from the kidney to the bladder. The duct is the ureter, which is responsible for carrying the drops of urine from the kidney or pelvis of the kidney to the urinary bladder by peristalsis. The next. It is loss of water in the form of liquid accumulated in drops at the leaf tips. The loss of water in the form of liquid, not water vapor, that accumulated in the drops at the leaf tip at the early morning during spring. That's a very simple question because that's the scientific term of the guttation, which you get out from through the hydrosood or water stop. The next. A group of loose cells has an opening for losing of water and salts. This group of loose cells which allow water and salts get out from the tips of leaves of some plants is called the hydrosood or water stome. The next. It is lost 5% of the water vapor through special opening on the stems. The special opening in the wooden stems is called the lenticels. But these 5% of water vapor get out through the lenticels is called the lenticular transpiration. So the answer is the lenticular transpiration. The next. Amount of blood per liter pass through the kidney per minute. Amount of blood per liter pass through the kidney per minute. It's 1.2 to 1.3 liters of blood pass through the kidney per minute. The next. The functional unit of the human kidney. The functional unit of the human kidney is a nephron, because each nephron consists of 1 million of nephrons responsible for the extraction of the urine components from the blood. The next. Granules which are responsible for the skin color in man. Granules which are responsible for the skin color in man. The granules are called the melanin layer. The next. A tissue that forms the epidermis of the human skin. A tissue that forms the epidermis of the human skin. The epidermal layer of the skin acts as the epithelial tissue. So the epithelial tissue is the tissue responsible for covering the whole body surface and line the internal cavities. The next. The amount of water lost by the plant through stomata. Amount of water lost of the plant through stomata, that's the stomatal transpiration, about 90% of the transpiration. The next. The loss of little amount of water through lenticels. The loss of little amount of water through the lenticels is a lenticular transpiration. That's from about 5% of the water vapor which get out from the plant. My dear students, that's the end of chapter 4, which explain the process of excretion or the excretion process. Now we are going to explain the structure of the human nervous system and the sensitivity in the plant. The plant acts as a living organism and has a sensitivity. So what about the sensitivity in the plant? The plant can respond to many stimuli, at the light, the touch, the temperature, the humidity. Many stimuli can the plant carry out or make a response to the stimuli. And in this slide explains the movement of the leaflets of the mimosa plant. Explain the movement of the mimosa plant. احنا هناخد بالنا ان الليف دي بتاعت البلانت ده consists of primary petiole carry out 4 secondary petioles, and the 4 secondary petioles or racks each carry 2 rows of leaflets at the 2 sides. At the base of the primary racks and the secondary racks and the leaflets, the presence of swollen structure which is called the pulvineus. What about if you touch the mimosa plant؟ نبص كده لو لمسنا الميموسا plant يحصل لها ايه؟ If you touch the mimosa plant, the leaflets become close to each other, and the other nibbling cells which are not touched, they are become close to each other, and the plant part appear as a wilting plant. So that's act as a certain kind of sensitivity or irritability of the plant. So the plant can respond to touch. But the plant has no any nerve cells, has no nervous system, has no nerve nodes, has no nerves. How can we explain this action or the action of the plant or the response of the plant of the mimosa to the touch? Study the structure of the mimosa plant. The leaflets of the mimosa plant are pinnate and compound leaves. Pinnate means in the form of the pinna or شبه الريشة، فعلشان كده دي شكلها عاملة شكل البنة كده. بيبقى في leaves للدايكوت plant بتبقى اسمها palmate، عاملة زي البالم أو كفة الإيد. The leaves of the mimosa plant are pinnate and compound leaves. لما يبقى في على البيتيول بتاع الليف دي ورقة واحدة يبقى اسمها simple leaf. لما يبقى عندنا many leaflets بنسميها compound leaves. عشان كده leaves of mimosa plant are pinnate and compound leaves. Each leaflet has a primary racks. Primary racks means a primary petiole that carries 4 secondary racks or 4 secondary petioles. Each secondary racks carry 2 rows of leaflets at the 2 sides. At the base of each of the primary racks, secondary racks, leaflets, the presence of a swelling structure which is called the pulvineus. That is the structure of the leaves of the mimosa plant. We study the structure of the leaves of mimosa plant to explain the action of the touch movement in the mimosa plant. The second kind of movement is called the pulling movement or the tropism. Many kinds of movement as the plant as that of the phototropism. The phototropism is the response of the plant parts toward or away an external stimulus which is the light. The phototropism is the response of the plant parts toward or away from an external stimulus which is the light. If the plant exposed to light from lateral side, the plant stem tend toward the light but the root tend away from the light. Poisson Jensen carried an experiment to explain the mechanism of the phototropism. By cutting the tip of the oat coleoptile, the oat plant النبتة بتاعة الأوت أو الشوفان، عمل لها removing and allow the plant to expose to light from one side. The curvature or the phototropism is not takes place of the plant. If the growing tip return back to the stem of the plant directed towards the light. But if the growing tip is separated by the mica sheet, the plant lose its ability to tend towards the light. By the experiment of the Poisson Jensen explained the presence of certain substance which is called the auxin, which is secreted from the tip of the plant. But the accumulation of the waste takes place according to the presence of the light. The auxin move at the side away from the light. Then carry out the experiment by exposing the coleoptile seedling to lateral illumination or lateral light for some time and cut off its tip. He put the tip on the 2 corks or 2 blocks of agar separated by mica sheet. After sometimes he measured the concentration or the amount of oxygen in the two blocks of agar. The block of agar which facing the light and the block of agar that away from the light. He found that the block of agar at the side away from the light at the dark side, which is called the dark side, that containing more concentration of oxygen, about 65%, than that of the illuminated side, which is the 35%. لما نعمل exposing للgrowing tip of the plant to light from lateral side, the concentration of oxygen or the oxygen move at the side away from the light, with the concentration 65%, but the facing the light to 35%. But Poisson-Jensen and Vente explain that the curvature of the plant stem towards the light means the side away from the light to grow faster than that facing the light. That explain that the oxygen concentration responsible for the phototropism in plant, because the oxygen move away from the light and increase the growth and the elongation of the stem cells away from the light, so that causing increase the length of the side away from the light more than that facing the light, so curvature takes place of the plant. Vente experiment to show the concentration of oxygen. That's the same experiment which explains that the concentration of the side away from the light with the 65%, which increase the growth of the stem. So the stem is called the positive phototropism. But the opposite takes place of the root, because in the root the concentration of oxygen or the high concentration of the oxygen inhibit the growth of the root cells, but the low concentration accelerates the growth of the cells, so the roots tend away from the light, so it's called the negative phototropism. This question asks about the action of the light on the concentration of oxygen. The opposite figure shows a group of experiments conducted to study the effect of the exposure of the light from one side only on growth of the oat coleoptile. ال3 experiments اللي عندنا, the first experiment, the second and the third. The first experiment containing a mica sheet but not separate the growing tip completely. The second is covering the growing tip with a black cover. The third, the presence of the black cover which surrounds the stem except the growing tip. What about the conclusion of the experiments? At the first step or the first experiment, the stem tends towards the light, because the mica sheet is not separate the stem completely or the growing tip completely. So if this coleoptile exposed to light from lateral side, the concentration of oxygen become more at the side away from the light. So the high concentration at the side away from the light accelerates the growth and the elongation of the cells of the stem. So the side away from the light to grow faster than that facing the light. That leads to the curvature of the stem toward the light. But in the second experiment, nothing of will takes place except that the stem will grow vertically, because the concentration of oxygen at the two sides similar to each other. So the stem grow vertically without the curvature. At the third experiment, the phototropism or positive phototropism takes place of the stem, because the growing tip exposed to light. So the light move at the side away from the light and accelerates the growth that allows the stem to tend toward the light. That is the experiment which explain the action of the light on the growing tip. If you cover the growing tip by black clothes and expose the plant from lateral side, the plant which is covered with the black clothes not response to the light, because no effect of the light on the concentration of oxygen at the two sides of the plant, but that which is not covered with the oxygen tend or curve to the light, so that's called the phototropism, or the positive phototropism of the stem. What is the expected result from each experiment? The expected result from each experiment is the curvature takes place at the first and the third, but nothing will happen of the second. Explain your answer for the result of the first and the second experiment. The first and the second, the first curvature takes place because the mica sheet is not separate the growing tip completely, so the oxygen move at the side away from the light with high concentrations that accelerate the growth. But of the second, nothing will happen except that the stem grow vertically without the curvature toward the light. This video explains the action of the concentration of oxygen due to the effect of the light. If the growing tip exposed to the light or the direct sunlight, the concentration of oxygen at the growing tip become equal in all directions. That accelerates the elongation and the growth of the cells, so it grows vertically without any curvature, because the concentration of oxygen at all sides are the same. But what about if the plant exposed to light from lateral side؟ يعني احنا لو جبنا السورس اوف لايت ده خليناه الجنب ده وهنشوف الكونسنتريشن اوف اوكسين يجرى له ايه. هي الاوكسين amount is not increased, but the concentration of the oxygen or the distribution of oxygen is changed according to the concentration of the light. So if the plant exposed to lateral illumination or light from lateral side, that will causing the movement of the oxygen at the side away from the light, so the oxygen sent to the dark side of the plant. This causing division and elongation of these cells. الاكسجين هيجي في الجنب البعيد ده عن اللايت، يبقى ده هيزود الجروس ويزود الديفيجن، يبقى علشان كده السايد away from the light grow faster than that facing the light. So curvature takes place of the plant toward the light. That explains why the stem is positive phototropism. So the phototropism is a response of the plant parts toward or away the an external stimulus, which is light. The stem is positive phototropism, but the root is negative phototropism. These experiments explain the action of the gravity on the stem of the plant. That's called the geotropism. The geotropism is the response of the plant parts toward or away an external stimulus, which is the gravity. اللي يجرى لو خلينا البلانت in a vertical or in a horizontal position. If we put the plant in horizontal position at this experiment, the observation, the stem of the plant grow away from the gravity. So that's called negative geotropism. Negative geotropism means the plant part move away from the external stimulus, which is the gravity in the case of geotropism. نلاقي الستيم اتحرك كده، اتحرك بعيد عن الجرافيتي. لما يبقى بعيد يبقى ده ما راحش للجرافيتي، لكن حصل ريسبونس للجرافيتي but away from the gravity. عشان كده السؤال اللي قدامنا بيقول لي the stem is negative geotropism. The stem is negative geotropism. نبص للاكسبيرمنت اللي قدامي دي. انا عندي كام بلانت with the vertical position. هنميل البلانت ده هون هنخليه in horizontal position. لما نميل البلانت ده في الهوريزونتال بوزيشن نلاقي ايه؟ نلاقي ان الاكسجين concentration at the side that facing the gravity increase, and the high concentration of the auxin accelerates the growth and the elongation of the cells that facing the gravity. So the side that facing the gravity grow faster than that away from the gravity. So the stem tend away from the gravity. That's called the negative geotropism. So the answer, because the auxin increase in the lower side of the stem with the concentration 67%, which activates the elongation of the stem more than the upper side. So the stem bends up against gravity, so it is called the negative geotropism. The next question. Give reason. The root is positive geotropism. The root is positive geotropism. Positive means it moved toward the gravity. This video explains the action of the growth of the root toward the gravity. That's act as a germinated seed. That's the radical. The root grow directed toward the gravity, but the polyomule or the stem directed away from the gravity. هتلاقي الروت بينزل ناحية الجرافيتي، الستيم بيطلع بكل قوته علشان يتحرك بعيد عن الجرافيتي علشان يروح لللايت عشان يقدر يعمل photosynthesis process. لكن الروت هينزل جوه particles of the soil that grow against gravity, but the stem grow toward the gravity. عشان كده بنقول على الستيم على الروت هنا، نقول على الروت ده positive geotropism, but the stem is negative geotropism. طب ليه الروت positive geotropism؟ قلنا because the increasing of the auxin at the lower side of the root or the side that facing the gravity that inhibit the growth and the elongation of the cells. So the high concentration of auxin which facing the gravity inhibits the growth, but the upper side which containing low concentration of the auxin grow faster than the lower side, so the stem directed downwards toward the gravity. So the root is called positive geotropism. The question: the nervous system and the endocrine gland system control all the body activities in man. The nervous system and the endocrine gland system control all the body activities in man. The function of the nervous system is the receiving of the information from the sensory organs and sending the electrochemical signals to the different body organs in the form of motor nerve impulses. Accordingly, the nervous system controls the activities and reflects as a muscle contraction. That's the function of the nervous system. And the function of the nervous system act as a fast response to the stimuli. But the function of the endocrine gland system, it controls the metabolic process by the secretion of hormones. Therefore, the action of the nervous system faster than that of the action of the endocrine gland system. And also the velocity of the nerve impulses faster than that of the velocity of the hormonal action, because the hormones pass with the velocity of the bloodstream, because the blood carries the hormones to the whole body organs, but the nerve impulses pass with inside the nerve fibers with the velocity about 140 meters per second. The nervous system and the sensation in man. What about the type of stimuli? External stimuli and internal stimuli. The external stimuli as heat, gravity, pressure, sound, water, and light. That act as the external stimuli. But what about the internal stimuli? The internal stimuli are the muscle contraction, feeling hungry or pain. That act as the internal stimuli. So the two types of the stimuli, internal and external. The nervous system with the endocrine gland system, the internal conditions of the body that keep the internal conditions in the body in an ideal, constant, and balanced state, which is called the homeostasis. So the homeostasis, or the balanced state of the human body, is keeping the human body in the continuous direct communication with the external and the internal environmental conditions. So the stimuli, the internal stimuli and the external stimuli, both of them are act as a stimuli of the nervous system, and the nervous system forms a suitable response for each of them. What about the structure of the human nervous system? The human nervous system divided into three parts. The first part is the central nervous system, which consists of brain and spinal cord. The second is the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is nerves which get out from the spinal cord, and they are called the spinal nerves, and the nerves which come from the brain, which is called the cranial nerves. So the peripheral nervous system is the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves. The spinal nerves is the nerves which get out from the spinal cord, but the cranial nerves get out from the brain. But the autonomic nervous system divided into two parts: sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So the nervous system is divided into central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. The brain, which is protected by the skull, and the spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column. And the nerves which get out from the spinal cord are divided according to the presence of the vertebra which surround the spinal cord. The upper 7 vertebrae are called cervical. 8 pairs of spinal nerves get out from the cervical vertebra. 12 thoracic vertebra, where 12 pairs of spinal nerves get out. 5 nerves get out from the lumbar region of the spinal cord. The 1 nerve get out from the lower part of the spinal cord. What about the unit structure of the nervous system? The unit structure of the nervous system is the neuron or the nerve cell in man. The neuron consists of the body cell, which is called the cytosol. It has nucleus surrounded by neuroplasm, which containing neurofilaments and nucleus granules. Nucleus granules act as a food stored inside the nerve cell. It consumed during the nerve activities and appear at rest. The nerve impulses start from the cytosol to the axon and the terminal arborization of the nerve cells. The nerve impulses pass in the form of polarization, depolarization, and repolarization through the nerve fiber. The neuroplasm containing all cell organelles except the centrioles. Therefore, the neurons or the nerve cells can't divide due to the absence of the nerves. The dendrites, which act as an extension of the body cells, which are connected with each other to form the gray matter. But the extension, which is called the axon, the number of axons are collected together to form the nerve bundle, and the number of bundles form the nerve. So the unit structure of the nerve cell is a cytosol or the cytosol, which is a nerve cell, act as a unit structure of the nervous system. The nerve cells in man, the first part is called the cytosol or the body cell, but the second is called the cell process. The cell process are the dendrites and the axon. the dendrites that get out from the body cells, increase the neuron area or the nerve area. The axon, which is the nerve fiber, is more than 1 meter or maybe more than 1 meter. The axon is surrounded by myelin sheath, which is secreted by Schwann cells. The outer cover of the axon is the neurolema. The neurolema is the outer part of the axon. The part of the nerve axon that is not covered with myelin layer is called the Ranvier nodes. The axon ends with a terminal arborization. That's the structure of the body cells, which containing all the components of the animal cell except the centriole. Therefore, the nerve cell can't divide. The long extension from the nerve cell is called the axon. The axon is covered with fatty layer called the myelin layer, which is secreted from Schwann cell. The nerve impulses start from the body cell, pass through the axon, and end as a terminal arborization of the axon. The velocity of the nerve impulses at the parts of the nerve which cover those myelin layer is about 140 meters per second, but the velocity of the nerve impulses at the parts of the nerve axon which is not covered with myelin layer about 12 meters per second. So the presence of Ranvier nodes on the myelin layer of the axon that regulates the velocity of the nerve impulses. This slide explains the types of the nerve cells. There are 3 types of nerve cells. The first is called the sensory cell or sensory neuron. The second is a connector. The third is a motor neuron. The sensory neuron carries sensory impulses from the sensory organ to the central nervous system. The motor neuron carries motor impulses from the central nervous system to the responding organs as the muscles or glands. But the connector neuron connects between the sensory neuron and the second one, and the motor one. So there are 3 types of nerve cells: sensory neuron, connector neuron, and the motor neuron. That's the 3 types of the nerve cells. What about the neuroglia? Neuroglia is a connective cells have the ability to divide and perform the following function. So the neuroglia is not made of nerve cells, but act as a connective cells. What about the function of the neuroglia? Neuroglia support the neurons, act as an insulator between the neurons. Nutrition of the neurons have a role in repair the injured parts of some neurons. The neuroglia are responsible for repairing the injured parts of the neuron because the nerve cells can't divide due to the absence of the centriole inside the nerve cell. This slide explains the presence of the neuroglia that connect between the nerve cells. Through the neuroglia, the blood vessels can pass to supply the nerve tissue with the food. But between the terminal arborization of one neuron and the dendrites of the second one, the nerve impulses can pass through the nerve cells. What about the structure of the nerve? The nerve consists of a group of nerve bundles. Bundles يعني حزم من الnerve axons. The bundles is a group of axons, nerve fiber connected together by the neuroglia. Each bundle is surrounded by a connective tissue sheath. All the bundles are surrounded by another connective tissue called epineurum. The epineurum containing the blood vessels which feed or which supply the nerve with the food and oxygen. That is the structure of the nerve. The nerve consists of a great number of nerve axons surrounded by myelin sheaths and the nerve axon with the myelinated sheath may be surrounded by the neurolima sheath. A group of nerve axons are connected together by the connective tissue to form the bundle. So that's act as a bundle, the next bundle, the third and the fourth one. The bundles together are connected with the epineuron to form the nerve. So the nerve consists of a great number of nerve bundles surrounded by epineuron. Each nerve bundle consists of a great number of nerve axons, each surrounded by the epineuron, the neurolima, and the myelin layer. So the nerve can carry out many nerve fibers. Therefore, the nerves are divided into three types: the sensory nerve, motor nerve, and the mixed one. Sensory nerve carries the sensory impulses from the sensory organs to the central nervous system. The motor nerve can carry the motor impulses from the central nervous system to muscles or glands, but the mixed nerve can carry both of the sensory impulses and the motor impulses due to the presence of many nerve bundles inside the nerve. Some of them act as a sensory, but the others act as a motor. The transmission of the nerve impulses through the nerve fiber. The nerve fiber or the nerve membrane at rest is polarized. Polarization takes place due to three reasons. The first is the selective permeability of the membrane. Selective permeability of the nerve membrane means the ability of the membrane to move the potassium ions from inside to outside 40 times more than the sodium ions from outside to inside. The next reason is the accumulation of the ions inside and outside the cell. The concentration of the sodium ions outside the cell from 10 to 15 more than inside the cell. The concentration of the potassium ions inside the cell 30 times more than that outside the cell. The concentration of the negative chlorine and the negative heavy protein molecules inside the cell higher than that outside the cell. So the polarization of the nerve membrane at rest takes place due to the presence of three reasons. The first is the selective permeability of the membrane. The second is the accumulation of the ions inside and outside the nerve membrane. The third is the sodium-potassium pump. The sodium-potassium pump is the structure on the nerve membrane that keep the potential difference at negative 70 millivolt at rest. So it keeps the ionic distribution of the sodium ions and the potassium ions outside the membrane and inside. That to keep the selective permeability or the potential difference at the negative 70 millivolt at rest, which is called the state of the polarization. So the polarization means the presence of two poles, a negative pole inside and positive pole outside, and the potential difference between them about negative 70 millivolt at rest. بكده احنا وصلنا لبداية ازاي النيرف ممبرين يبقى polarized، يعني positive outside و negative inside، وقلنا ان ال accumulation او ال polarization that takes place due to the selective permeability of the nerve membrane and the unequal distribution of the ions inside and outside the cell and the presence of sodium-potassium pump. The sodium-potassium pump keeps the potential difference at negative 70 millivolt at rest. بكده أعزائي أبنائي وبناتي طلاب الصف الثاني الثانوي نكون أنهينا الجزء الأول من شابتر 5 اللي كان بيتكلم عن sensitivity implant، وبدينا في sensitivity in animals. إن شاء الله الحلقة الجاية بإذن الله هنكمل الجزء بتاع sensitivity in animals. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.